Good morning. Welcome to the first podcast for Stand for the Land. And we are in this wonderful town of Gardner. And I brought my wonderful friend, Kim Monson, and we have just met. We have known each other for over 2 years on the radio. And Kim comes from Denver, Colorado. And today we're going to join you and tell you a little bit about who we really are. Sometimes we don't get to tell that story. Stand for the Land is a very inclusive way for us to all connect as the Midwestern states, and we share values, but we also share problems as well. And so today, just find out a little bit about me and my friend Kim, and just have that honest conversation. So, Kim Monson, welcome to the show of Stand for the Land. First, we're right out the gate.
I am so honored to get to do this, Virginia Mach. And I do feel like we are sisters because you've been a frequent guest on my radio show, the Kim Monson Show, that broadcasts out of the Denver market Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 a.m. on all the KLZ 560 platforms. And then podcasts can be found at kimmonson.com. So as I was coming down the escalator at the airport yesterday, I looked over and I said, there she is. And it is so great to be here with you.
It's almost like we're kind of kindred spirits, and you find those people across Kansas, and everybody has a great story. We sometimes don't have all the time in the world to learn those stories, but over the past probably almost 2 years now, the person we have in common is Jeff. And Jeff and I sat on a fair board together. And I'm not sure if we were like good cop, bad cop, or I'm not sure what me and Jeff were, but Jeff was just a treasured friend. He'd give me some guidance because I'm, kind of a little bold, like if there's an issue, I just kind of attack it. And he showed me how to be more diplomatic.
Yes.
And one day he called and said, you got to meet my cousin, Kim. She has a radio show in Denver, and I'd never done radio in my entire life. I was always the person behind the scenes giving the platform to the person that really needed to speak out. And I'm just kind of a facilitator. And I remember that first conversation, and your producer, Joe, goes, okay. And he made it all right. And we're going to do this, and this is going to happen. And he made it so easy.
Great.
So along the way, there's always these people and opportunities. And it's so nice that you gave me the opportunity. It gave me a little more confidence to be in front of the camera. And Stand for the Land has just grown into this huge opportunity to bind us together as Midwesterners and, talk about what prevents us from having freedom or what gives us the opportunity to have freedom. And you've been a great friend.
Well, we have much more to do. And yes, my cousin Jeff is the one that connected us. And I'm a Kansas girl. I grew up on the western plains of Kansas, and I dearly love Kansas. And Jeff lives out in western Kansas as well. And yes, he's how we got connected. He has one of the driest senses of humor. And he's one of the youngest one. I think there's 24 of us grandkids. And so he's been able to figure out how to navigate all that. And he does that really well.
And it's always about your family. Mm-hmm. And so growing up in the rural area, because we both did, our situations weren't so different, but don't you think it really formed who we were? So when I met Jeff, he was this reserved, really quiet guy. No rule breaking here. And he was real monotone on what he said because he didn't want to offend anybody at the table. And in comes this board member like, holy cow, what am I going to do with her? And it was his last fair as president. And he asked me before we went out to meet the press, he said, would it be okay if you just kind of hold it down? So it's my last year as president, and I don't want to go out on the front page. And I just kind of laughed at him, and I thought, what's he talking about? And when we walk out there, and there were all these reporters, and they didn't go to him, they went straight at me, and he knew they would. And there was this one lady had a little pad, and she had a little pencil, and Mary. And he told me, and he kept giving me these eye signs over there, like, no, Virginia, don't engage, don't engage. And Mary, I thought, was just trying to be genuine. I said, hey, Mary, you know what we're going to do? Let's go ride that train. And we got on the little train because Mary never rode the train. And she still had her little pen and paper. And she's trying to ask me this question. And it was probably one of those loaded ones.
Sure.
I got her on the train and she forgot what she was going to ask me. And she got off the train and she said, wait, I didn't get to ask you. Can we go back? And I said, hey, I'll catch you later. And so every time I saw her, I made her do an activity with me. And so pretty soon I thought, it'll wear her out if she's after one thing. And she started having fun and I started being her friend. So she never came from a critical point, she came from a more middle point. And I think it really portrays you when you come from that point to really want to learn about people. And that's what I find interesting about your radio show is you let people really express what's going on out there because there's so many arenas, and you give an opportunity for us listeners to be in that arena with them. And I find that genuine conversation.
Well, and we need to have more of those conversations, Virginia, because the way that we are going to reclaim this great American idea in each of our states, we're realizing that there are things that are being mirrored from one state to another. And the way that we are going to reclaim all this is that we have these conversations to re-understand these principles that made America great, and that we bring transparency to these issues, we talk about these issues, and when that happens, amazing things happen.
So along the way, everyone kind of tries to put you in a box. In my childhood, my mother, we have 10 in our family.
Oh my gosh.
And my mom had a point where she never wanted her kids to be boxed in. And so when they came, I had a note from the school teacher, and I handed it to my mom. I didn't know what it said. I was in first grade. And it said, Virginia's really busy.
I could see that.
She tries to take over the classroom. And it had about 3 points on there. Could you come and see me? And so there I'm standing with my teacher, I was always in timeout, or in this chair or that chair. She gave me the broom. One time I swept the room so I'd have something to do. And she says to my mom, she has a behavior problem. And my mom says, well, okay, describe it. And I'm sitting there and I can't understand why my mom's in my classroom to begin with. And I'm thinking, am I in trouble, you know? And the teacher's trying to explain what I did wrong, that it would be odd behavior for a kid. And my mom says, it sounds as if my daughter's bored. Maybe she should go to the next grade. And I don't think the teacher expected that. And she goes, well, she can't. And my mom said, well, I would find a way for her to be promoted for harder work, or make her work harder. And if she's busy, give her something busy to do. She could be your helper. And when I left that room, I was like, my mother just said how I was a hard worker, and I felt ingratiated, and the teacher had this look on her face like, now what I'm gonna do, So it was like she was trying to break it to my mom, maybe trying to label me, and my mom just kind of turned it around real quickly, real nice.
Yeah, what a beautiful way to do that.
Yeah. So, and she did that for all of us kids. And in our childhood, growing up, we grew up in a very poor mining town.
Here in Kansas?
Here in Kansas.
Okay.
It was on the border of Pitcher, Oklahoma, and Treese. It's kind of a famous outlaw area. And one time, someone asked me if we were poor. I said, well, I don't know. I'll go home and ask my mom, I'll get back to you. And I went home, and honestly, I didn't know what that meant. And it was like 3rd or 4th grade. And my mom looked at me and she said, do you have shoes to put on your feet? Yeah. Do you get a meal every day? No. 3 times a day? Yeah. Do your brothers and sisters have clothes on their back? Mm-hmm. You're not poor. And I went back and I told that person that. And then she became confused because her mother had told her I was poor. And so when you label kids, my mother never allowed it.
And that's really, really wise.
I mean, even if you think that you know the situation, until you talk about someone's story, you really get to experience what they are. Good, bad, or indifferent. Everyone has a story. And you got to own it and be proud of it and move on from it or learn from it. And that's who you are when you get to be our age. It's like it kind of forms you, who you are. So I've always been kind of a bold person, and it never really was about politics. It was about right or wrong or oppression. I always stood up for the kid that got bullied.
Yeah.
And
I did too.
I mean, you have to.
So, Virginia, you're bringing up something about labeling that I think is really important. Yeah. And I was on city council from 2012 to 2016 in my where I live. And it was really a good experience to learn things. But what I realize now is we are labeling our children under this narrative of workforce development.
Yeah.
And I see the danger that kids will be labeled that, oh, you're on this track, you're on this track. Kids develop differently.
Yeah.
And so to label kids for some kind of workforce, we want to educate our children to have the tools to thrive and prosper and go after their dreams.
And it really is about the American dream. You know, my dad, he was probably the poorest kid ever. And he worked in the mines when he was 12 years old. Treese is a mining town that doesn't exist anymore. It was an EPA cleanup. And my mom had a phone call one time, and it was just comical because we were all eating dinner and doing all the crazy stuff, because when you have 10 people all talking at the same time. And my mom said, "You're who? A lawyer?" And he wanted her to join a class action suit because lead mines. Mm-hmm. And my mom goes, "Well, what does that mean? Like, is there something wrong with us?" And the guy's describing her whole table full of kids. And, well, it's learning disabilities and all these little labels. And it was so funny because my mom goes, "Hey, does anybody at this table have a learning disability? Raise your hand." And we're all like looking at her like we're confused. And we get, the conversation continues, and she goes, "Hey, do any of you have an attention problem and can't stay on task?"
Well, most children do.
Most children do. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget that. And she tells the guy on the phone, "Nope, we're good here." And that he wanted her to join a lawsuit. And I said, "Why was that so important?" Because, we were old enough to kind of understand what she was talking about. And she said, when you put a label on something, you put expectations on a person. And she said, "I didn't ever allow it because all my kids are different, and you all come with your talent, and you all function as a unit. When you start labeling, you start, expecting behavior." And she said, and I got 10 kids, and it just drive me crazy trying to figure out, what expectation did I have for that kid? Was it that kid? Or, she confused us all the time because of the names, and we knew who she was talking about. Yeah. But I think that it really gave me insight to what kind of times we're in now, to really listen to people's story, because it matters. And everybody has one, good, bad, or indifferent. They either learn from it, or maybe it might take them twice to learn from it.
Sometimes longer.
Yeah. When you're in rural Kansas, it is, everybody's a little different. But the unique thing is, there's something good about everyone. And when they talk about it, there's this light that goes off, and it's like I don't know what it is, a glow. Like, I guess I do have a great story. And so when we label people, it just seems to eliminate that factor of we really don't get to know them.
Right.
And so what I remember about this last 5 years is I've met some of the greatest people, the most talented people. A lot of people retired, and everybody deserves value and to be listened to. So that's kind of why I started Stand for the Land, because there wasn't a place to really talk about everyone has an opportunity in this country, and the American dream is the greatest experiment of all times. I mean, we experience it every day in every decision we make.